What's going on, everybody? It's Spencer Ostrowski, joined by my co-host Kevin Kelly.
What's going on, party people? I'm
There we
sorry.
go.
I didn't know that was an in for me.
That was your cue.
What's going on?
We are live from the Lee Bishop Studios here at UNLV. Lee Bishop is the one who designed our logo, and of course we want to give him a shout out every single show.
Thank you so much, Lee.
Yeah, it looks great,
Appreciate
man.
it.
It really does. So this is kind of our first official podcast where we talk real sports instead of an introduction. And what better time to start than the trade deadline?
First episode of the Reborn Delivering Sports. We're talking some NBA
Officially
trades.
on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, anywhere you listen to podcasts ought to be on there. You can also follow us on Twitter at Delivering Sports. Instagram will be at Delivering Sports. It's all on there. We'll be in full force, and YouTube, of course. I guess we can just get right into it
Let's
if you
do
like.
Dude. Let me pull the trades up here real quick.
I would say overall, pretty an underwhelming trade season. Would you agree before we get into each specific one?
Yeah, I would. If the biggest trade you have is D'Angelo Russell, I mean, like that's not really like a huge blockbuster trade, especially like. I guess we can get right into it.
In terms of title contention,
Yes.
I would say this wasn't a big trade deadline.
The thing is, like, you kind of like expected something like this to happen anyway, especially like when they first signed
Yeah,
D'Lo.
I mean, it was choreographed the entire time. There's no way that Klay Thompson was going to play the small forward position.
Yeah, like that was something they even talked about like the minute he signed. It was like, oh, maybe it might be something they try and like, renege on later in the season.
So I guess we'll start there. We didn't officially introduce the trade, but the Warriors got Andrew Wiggins. They got a first-round pick in 2021, a protected top 3 pick in 2021. And the Timberwolves, of course, were able to shed Andrew Wiggins as well as getting D'Angelo Russell, who
They got like two pretty decent Warriors players now that I'm looking at this.
Jacob Evans
And
he's
Maury
okay.
Spellman are solid.
They're okay. They can play on a team. They're not going to be G Leaguers, I don't think.
Like my whole thing is this like now is like the Timberwolves like roster turnover is insane.
Yeah,
They have like an entirely new
That's
team
what I was going to say. I think the big part of all of this is that they were going after him in free agency, so they were looking to get him straight up.
D'Lo was always a big fish for Minnesota.
Yeah, so the fact that they were able to shed Andrew Wiggins' contract and also get the guy that they wanted in free agency is you essentially cannot think of a better scenario for the Timberwolves, right?
No, I don't think
This
so.
is the best outcome they can have, and now the Timberwolves, who just got Jared Culver in the draft, who hasn't played fantastic.
He's been okay.
He's been okay, but now you for sure are going to get another asset in this upcoming draft and essentially have 4 core young players who you believe, because they're not out on Jared Culver or anything like that. That's not the idea, but they are going to get another piece in the draft that they can, because this roster, let's be honest, is a tired roster full of players that they've had since I was born, it feels like.
The Timberwolves?
Yeah. So now they're
it's
going to be able to finally hit the reset button. They got rid of lifetime
pretty
contract
refreshed,
Gortney Jang, who has been there forever.
He's got like we compared Gorgie Dang's contract to one of Omer Asik, where it felt like he was just under contract forever.
Yeah, right.
Like it would just never end. The biggest thing for this trade to me is like I'm surprised how little it took for them to sell off on D'Lo, because all of the stuff leading up made it sound like they wanted a team's like draft future.
Yeah.
Like kind of wanted to own a team's draft future in order to give up on D'Lo, which is kind of crazy. And to see them just like give up on it for like a protected 2021 pick, that's kind of crazy to me. I will say the 2021 pick may be more valuable than a 2020 pick. This is not the best draft.
And it is only top 3 protected. So if they're in the lottery, it's not like lottery protected. They could have a top 10 pick, although you would imagine that the Timberwolves get better with Russell, like automatically.
Their offense should be fantastic.
Although I don't think they're going to make the playoffs necessarily. I think
it might be too late.
It's probably going to be like a 10 to 15 when the time that pick comes around. I don't think they're going to be a top bottom 3 team in the league unless the lottery balls fall their way. But more than likely, they're probably going to be like the 13th pick, which isn't terrible. But then again, is it D'Angelo Russell like good? I mean, that's where you get kind of crazy. And I get the idea of signing a player. It's exactly what the Knicks did, and we'll talk about that trade in a bit, but where you sign a guy in the offseason because you can, with the literal reason of being able to have a nice trade asset in the future. But the problem is he never fit there in the first place, and they also overpaid him, which I think made their trade like a lot harder to get done. Like you're essentially limiting yourself to the Timberwolves, who want him that badly. I don't think any team in the NBA wants a max player D'Angelo Russell.
like I like D'Angelo Russell. I think he's deserving. Like I don't think he's on like a super bloated contract. I think there are a lot more. Like, there are a lot worse contracts for players who are, as good as, or if not like a little bit worse than him. I just don't really get this deal for Golden State like much at all.
As I'm telling you, I think his contract was a major problem with this.
I just don't. I don't get taking Wiggins back. Wiggins is a much worse contract.
It's a worse contract.
Like he's making. I think he's going to end up making more than D'Angelo Russell is this year, and he's just not. Kerr said it like it was so weird the way that like the Warriors have kind of approached talking about this trade now, because it's like Wiggins. They're talking about like, oh, Kerr went on today in media availability and was talking about like Wiggins was like he was asked to be a star player in Minnesota, and that's not really what he is, and we're bringing him here to play a role behind two other star players, and I'm just like, you're paying $28 million for a role.
He also,
player,
I believe, is not going to like put his field goal attempts down to 10. I don't see that out of Andrew Wiggins.
It's a tough spin, regardless.
He's a ball dominant player. Yeah. Like that's the kind of guy he is. He's not a catch and shoot type of guy. So
it's just you give up what you get. A questionable, like the value of the pick you get back is questionable, and Wiggins is obviously like it's going to take. You're going to need to be able to move mountains in order to get like really good production out of him. So. I don't like if that's the centerpiece of. I just don't like this trade for the Warriors. I think it's like, I think they've been making more and more questionable.
It doesn't seem like the best case
moves.
Scenario for them. At the very least, I'll say that.
I don't know. I feel like again,
you have Wiggins for what, the next 3 years at least.
I'm not sure how willing the Knicks were to make this deal. I'm pretty like they was pretty much like when it came down to it.
I think you can also factor in with the Knicks like incompetency when it comes to trade talks. Yeah,
I was gonna say like. It's the gauge on how interested the Knicks were in D'Angelo Russell, like, because it came down to those two. It came down to Minnesota and New York, and the gauge on how interested the Knicks were in D'Angelo Russell kind of like varied because they fired their fucking president. I'm sorry, they fired their president like
their bleeping president.
They fired their president 2 days before the deadline. Like, I don't really know like what your plan is. Apparently they're still pursuing him afterwards. I'm not sure. But I feel like if you're Golden State, it's in your best interest to get the pick from the Knicks.
I will say it. I mean, we're gonna talk about this more later, but I can understand firing a GM 2 days before like the trade deadline, because if you know that you're gonna fire him, you don't want his last act to be the trade deadline. So, but it does put you in a tough place, obviously, because now you're asking someone who really isn't in the position to make a bunch of trades So, but we'll get into that later. We'll try to take it one team at a time.
All right. What's your grade for the D'Angelo Russell trade for both teams?
It's got to be an A for the Timberwolves, regardless of how. I mean, Russell's going to be good for them. He's going to be a 20-point per game scorer. If that's the guy you want, that's what I'm going to say.
If that's the guy you want and that's the price you pay, I'll give you an A for that. Yeah. I give the Warriors a D.
I'll give him a C-. I mean, you do get a future asset that's probably going to be a top 10 pick, but that's about all I give him.
The Wiggins thing kind of like that's what tips the scale.
It's a problem.
Not good to me, and especially because like I think the Timberwolves got away with a couple of the Warriors like remaining good players.
Yeah, Jacob Evans could be a pretty good player. Let's move on. Yeah, we'll move on. Andre Iguodala, through all the controversy, through all of it, he is traded. I knew it was going to happen. The Mavericks had already offered a second-round pick to Memphis with a few other players, but the trade reportedly included Courtney Lee, and the Grizzlies already had Courtney Lee like a couple years ago. So honestly, that was their fallback plan. That I don't think they're really ever planning on taking old players back or anything like that, nor did they need them. Memphis was looking to get something.
Let me break this trade down. Yep. So Miami gets Andre. It was a pretty massive 3-team trade. Miami gets Andre Iguodala, Jay Crowder, and Solomon Hill. So a good crop of vets.
Yeah,
and
Solomon
pretty Hill. Good. And you get Solomon Hill there too.
Yeah, I mean you had to throw that in there. So
the Grizzlies get Justice Winslow, which is probably like the biggest part of this for them. They get Dion Waiters, who they're going to waive, and Georgie Dang. Is it the
Georgie Dang?
Yeah, because they got Dang instead of James Johnson.
They ended up trading. Yeah. So the Timberwolves got involved and had swapped James Johnson with Gorgie Jang, and I can understand. At first, I was like, "Yo, what the heck?" I don't like that. But then you think that the Grizzlies are looking to go young, so they have Josh Jackson that they've been holding on the G League, and they just got rid of 2 forwards who played regular minutes in Jay Crowder and Solomon Hill, and you think like Josh Jackson finally has his time to shine because he literally just couldn't find minutes behind those two, and now you give him that opportunity. And I think that's what they're going for. And they didn't really have a backup center position. And Gorgie Jang is going to be okay. He's probably going to play like 12, 15 minutes a night. So it made more sense afterwards. And their contracts between Deng and James Johnson are pretty comparable. It's nothing like way over the top. So it kind of made sense. And the T-Wolves again are looking to turn over their roster and kind of create something new and a new kind of chemistry involved. So it was a pretty good kind of last minute deal for both teams, I think.
For Miami it's super aggressive. It's a super aggressive move.
They want to win this year. They think they can.
Because I guess like I know I don't really know what you expect to get from Iguodala at age 36.
Jay Crowder might be better than Iguodala.
That's what I'm saying. So I was saying he's a really underrated part of this trade because Jay Crowder was giving good minutes for the Grizzlies.
At first, honestly, I was pretty upset that they lost Jay Crowder because he was a pretty good part of the team. But then I realized he's on an expiring deal, and he played pretty well this season, and Memphis isn't going to pay him $15 a year.
No.
Which is what he's going to want. He's going to want around $15 a year to play for anybody because he can be a starting, defensive two-way small forward. And I was like, you know what, they had to move him, and it just so happened to work out in this deal.
The part where this all gets questionable is Pat Riley immediately extending Iguodala upon arrival, 2 years, $30 million. I'm not sure what you, like, again, for $15 million, I'm not sure what you're expecting to get out of Andre Iguodala.
His last 2 years in Golden State were not great.
Not a reliable shooter, not really a reliable scorer. I'm questionable on him on a defender. He'll get you like a couple good defensive possessions, but I'm not sure like what are you really getting out of Andre Iguodala?
The idea, and I've seen some reports is saying that he's going to be used as another trade piece in case they need it in the future because $15 million, I guess, is a good
just to like match salaries.
To match salaries.
Whatever, dude. Okay,
I don't know if I believe that. I don't know if I believe that, but I've heard I've heard people say, just around kind of gauging people's interest in like how they think this went. People are saying that this makes Miami the second best team in the East. I mean, what do you think about that?
I'm not really sure. Like, I'm not sure. It depends on Iguodala and like how sure are you that he moves the needle for your team. Is. I mean, like he's probably in shape. Like I think he was like I don't think he was just like sitting on the couch this entire season, like just because he didn't like know where he was going to end up playing this year. But like, what are you getting him to do? He's not going to start, right?
I don't imagine.
There's no room for him in the starting five.
Nor do you want a 36-year-old starting at small forward. You want him playing pretty like 22 limited minutes.
So like, I don't know. I don't. That's
what I'm saying. Jay Crowder is probably the better part of this deal. He could start for them.
That's Crowder what I'm saying. It adds shooting.
That was a good part of the deal for Pat Riley. That was the best part of the deal, I think.
So yeah, and then the Timberwolves, they're rolling. This is pretty cut and dry. They kind of want to get rid of Deng's contract. You take on James Johnson, who I think is expiring.
He's not, but like I said, I think they're just trying to turn over their roster.
Well, like you don't have to play James.
They just
Johnson.
They just want new faces. I think he will play for them like a few minutes. He's okay as a forward position.
I think the Grizzlies come out like final word on this trade. I think the Grizzlies come out of this the winners.
I mean, the Grizzlies got a first-round pick just for taking on Andre Iguodala, and when you add in the fact that they get a chance for he's an injury-prone guy. Justice Winslow has been injured a lot in his career, but it's essentially a no risk for them.
The thing is with the Grizzlies, like they have a bunch of wing depth, and so it's not really like a huge.
If he gets injured,
it's
okay.
No, but I'm saying like you want Justice Winslow to be part of your team going forward,
of course,
because he's a really good all-around player.
Yeah.
But like you can be patient with him because you're not really starved for wing talent right now, especially now you have Josh Jackson getting called up and getting minutes.
And
now.
They seem pretty dedicated to actually playing him, which if he turns out being good, Justice Winslow, I think his limited minutes could be much more valuable because obviously the less strain on your body, the less minutes you play. So I think it could end up being really, really big for Memphis.
So the Heat grade pending Andre Iguodala. Grizzlies, I think you get an A-.
You get an A- just because of the value you get from one player who never played a single game for them.
And then Timberwolves, for you accomplish your goal, so I'll give them a B+.
Yeah, a B is good for that.
It really it doesn't move the needle either way. Let's move on to this massive, gargantuan mega trade.
The biggest trade in since 2000 or something.
The 12-player trade, which I think moves the needle for about zero.
It moves
teams.
it a little bit. It moves a little bit.
Maybe. Jordan Bell got traded to Memphis in this deal. Okay,
Jordan Bell was for.
Let me crack this down for you guys. Okay, in a 4-team trade in which 12 players go on the move. The trade centers around Robert Covington going to Houston and Clint Capella going to Atlanta. So the Rockets in this trade walk away with just Robert Covington. They did get Jordan Bell, who was later traded.
Was flipped for Caboclo.
Yes, who was then traded to Memphis for Bruno Caboclo. The Hawks got Clint Capella and Nene Hilario, who was waived. So the biggest piece for them was getting Clint
was
Capella.
Clint Capella. It was just
And
for
then
salaries.
The Timberwolves got the entire Nuggets bench. They got Evan Turner, Malik Beasley, Juancho Hernan-Gomez, and Jared Vanderbilt, and a first-round pick for Robert Covington. The only thing they sent out, pretty much the only thing they sent out was Robert Covington and Noah Vonleh. That's crazy. They got a first-round pick, a Brooklyn's first-round pick from Atlanta.
Malik Beasley.
Good player. A good player. And then the Nuggets get Shabazz Napier, Noah Vonleh, Keita Bates-Diop, and Gerald Green, and a first-round pick from Houston.
They did it for the first-round pick. I mean, they're not getting – I mean, Gerald Green, I mean, I could see that being like a playoff time kind of player. But
I love Noah Vonleh for the Nuggets. I think he's still a really good player.
So, okay, we'll break this down one at a time. What does Robert Covington do for you? I mean, that's a pretty good pickup, I gotta say, for Houston. That's not bad.
I'm not gonna poo on it. They just beat the Lakers with the help of Robert Covington.
I'll say this: is Robert Covington significantly better than Gerald Green?
I think so. I think on both ends, I think you're getting more from Covington.
I say on defensively, you're definitely gonna get more out of Covington. Offensively, yeah, maybe a little more, but I guess this is more. I say this is more of a defensive move, and also, of course, they get a little younger by shedding them.
I understand why you make a move like this. Like, you make a move like this to kind of bolster your scoring and bolster your perimeter defense, which are two very important things to the Rockets.
Yeah.
And so, but at the same time, I question Daryl Morey's like cost risk analysis so much.
Well, he just puts himself in a corner with these contracts.
There's not a center on the team you can play 30 minutes.
They say PJ Tucker is going to play the 5.
And that's not going to work long term. You may beat the Lakers because you catch them off guard with a play style like that. It's not going to work long term. It's especially not going to work in the playoffs. So I get where they're coming from. I just don't like. I think Daryl Morey puts himself into a corner too many times, and like he has to do some creative.
He has
booking
to do some 2K shit.
Yeah. So it's like, does this move the needle for the Rockets? No, but like I feel like you got to make a move. Like the way they're playing this year, I feel like a move had to be made, and this is the best they could do, which is unfortunate. Hopefully they can get a big man in buyout season.
They're gonna have to get Joakim Noah.
They might have to. Someone, whoever's like lying around there.
Yeah.
Moving on, the Hawks get Clint Capella, which is like
okay. I've been thinking about this a lot. Now listen, hear me out.
Mm-hmm.
The Hawks have been stockpiling draft picks for a long time. Like I would say at least over the last 2 years, they've been getting tons and tons of players in the top 10. And in this deal, yes, they do lose a first-round pick, which is not ideal, obviously, but it's not their own.
One that could be pretty decent, though. It's a pretty decent pick, I think. I think it's the 2021 Brooklyn pick, or it might be this year's Brooklyn pick.
So it's not gonna be in the lottery.
It's gonna be I think it'll be in the teens.
Well, it'll be in the teens, obviously, but I mean, it's gonna be a pretty late-ish first-round pick. It's gonna be like right after the lottery. So I'm thinking this: is there a player after 15 at the center position that you feel is going to be as good as Clint Capella?
Let's find out here. Let me pull up a mock draft real quick.
I'll just, while you pull that up, all I'm thinking is
this is a pretty, like, as far as like forwards and like kind of like semi like hybrid bigs, it's a pretty deep draft. I would think like if this pick ends up, in the 13 to 15 range, you take a guy like Obi Toppin or someone like that. But
that's what I'm saying. The Hawks have a bunch of young players. Like, don't you think they could use a center player who is more of a veteran type of guy who know you're going to get production out of?
Yes, I do agree with that, but I don't know if Clint Capella is the kind of difference maker you do that for, because they were one of the first teams associated with Andre Drummond, and I would have much rather they trade a first rounder for Andre Drummond.
I mean, it's, first of all, now that you bring that up, it is a really good point. How do you not get Andre Drummond after you see what the Cleveland Cavaliers give up the Brooklyn pick for Andre Drummond?
That's my thing.
But you have Clinton Capella for the next 4 years, so that's part of it. You don't know if Andre Iguodala would re-sign. So if you waste a first-round pick and he doesn't stay with you,
I think the sheer act
you're screwed.
I honestly think the sheer act of getting Andre Drummond a good point guard would have like signed his name on the dotted line.
But if you don't get a guarantee from him, you don't do that deal.
Sure.
I think maybe that's what it came down to, because we don't know what's going on inside the phone calls at all times.
I'm just not a huge fan of trading a first round pick for Clint Capella's contract. I don't think he's that much of a difference maker. So yeah, I don't
like
know this for the
I'm
Hawks.
interested.
I really
I'm
don't.
not completely out on it, but I mean, I get where you're coming from.
The Timberwolves, in hindsight, now this trade looks a lot better because they ship out. Obviously, getting a first round pick was huge for them, but getting a lot of bench depth. Malik Beasley and Juancho Hernangomez are very good.
Hernangomez is good.
They're solid, like not very good, but they're like solid. They're good players you would want to have off your bench. Evan Turner too, to a degree, you would like to have Evan Turner off your bench. Jared Vanderbilt is still like you don't know really what you have in a guy like him. I don't think he's ever been like really healthy enough to the point where he can contribute. You get a first round pick, but now you have these guys kind of bolstering your bench now that you have D'Angelo Russell, which is
I can understand that.
It kind of boosts that up for me.
I will say though, at the end of the day, I think that like I'm talking projected next 5 years, the two pieces that you get from this trade, which are the most important part, because Hernangomez, Turner, Jared probably won't be on this team in 3 years. That's just my guess. But you get a good player in Malik Beasley, and you get like we said, probably either
a decent value
end
first.
of lottery or right after lottery first round pick. So those are two really valuable gets for the Timberwolves that I think will be on the team for quite some time.
For the Nuggets, I think kind of is just like I don't really.
You get a first round pick.
You get a first round pick,
which
and I think that's what you're in it for.
To be pretty good.
Yeah. So yeah, they've gotten
a lot of value out of their first round picks.
They've been able to see value, and I think that's what they're mostly in it for. You get Noah Vonleh, who's a decent
and Gerald
pick.
Green. I mean, they're going to play on their team for the playoffs.
Some shooting,
Vonleh and Gerald Green will be on their team come playoff time.
So yeah, but you're mostly in it for the first round pick, and so that's I think
they're betting on themselves.
If you can flip Beasley, Hernangomez, and Vanderbilt into a first, I think that's it. I think you did a good job. So grades for this one, I'm giving the Rockets. Give them a B-.
I'll give him a B. I'll give him a solid B. Robert Covington's a good player, and he'll have plenty of playing time for them.
Hawks, I'm giving a D+. I don't like this trade.
I give him a C+. I think we're a little different on this one. It's not great, but I think given the circumstances, it was all right.
Timberwolves, hindsight, post-Elo trade, I get you a I kind of want to give him an A-.
I'm going A-, so.
And I'll give the Nuggets a solid B just because.
I give them a B. They're betting on themselves with this one.
All right, here's the trade I want to talk about most because I'm pretty pissed.
This is the biggest trade of the trade. This is the biggest trade.
This is not as far as biggest trade, so that the biggest piece was moved because obviously like D'Angelo Russell was the best player who was moved, but like he didn't kind of pop up. He didn't kind of pop up until trade talks until like a couple of days before the deadline.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like, and you always kind of expected him to get moved. But as far as heading in, like it's like, oh, when trade season comes around, this guy's going to be a hot commodity. Marcus Morris was traded to the Los Angeles Clippers in what became a 3-team trade. Let's break it down real quick. The Clippers got Mook. They got Mook Morris, and they got Isaiah Thomas, who the Clippers then waived, which is kind of fucked up. Like,
poor guy, man.
I don't know. He can help a team, dude. I don't really like. I've had IT on my fantasy team the entire year. He's gotten me some pretty good. Like he's put up some pretty good performances. I think he can help a team. But yeah, they waived Isaiah Thomas. His NBA future is now uncertain. The Knicks get Mo Harkless. I don't know why this doesn't have it listed. The Knicks get Mo Harkless, a first round. The Clippers 2020 first round pick. I think they're just trying to make fun of the Knicks. The Knicks just got Mo Harkless for Marcus Morris.
Screw the Knicks.
Yeah. So the Knicks got Mo Harkless. They got the Clippers 2020 first round pick, and I believe they got Detroit's 2021 second round pick. They got 2 picks in this. So, and then the Wizards got Jerome Robinson, which is like, he's a good shooter. Jerome Robinson is a good shooter, and so, you bolster the Wizards that way, but I'm not really sure, how he's going to get implemented on this. I want to say, like, this is basically, I am disappointed with this. I'm not disappointed with getting a first-round pick back, but at the same time, that was pretty much the asking price. That was the price you need to pay to even get in these conversations, get in the door. And so, the onus of this was largely put on Scott Perry to finish this after Steve Mills got fired. Thank God, because I don't think Steve Mills was willing to trade Morris regardless. So the fact that Mills was gone, and they kind of flip-flopped on that philosophy very relatively quickly, was comforting in that, again, you signed Marcus Morris, you poached him from the Spurs first of all, which is kind of crazy. You signed him to a short-term $15 million a year deal. He's playing lights out. legit like almost like he's one of the like a top 5 3-point shooter this year, especially off the catch, and he's playing like a man possessed. He's averaging like 20 points per game. You're never gonna get more value out of him unless you trade him, and so they were never gonna re-sign him.
No.
Like it wouldn't have been a good idea to re-sign him, I think, long term. But the fact that they did was like it's a good use of assets. Getting now the Knicks have like 7 first rounders in the next 4 years, which is it's a good way to. They've been sacking assets, and so they don't have as many as a team like the Thunder because they don't really have like star players to trade.
It's impossible to have that many draft
That's crazy.
assets.
But yeah, like but as far as like how we approach this situation on deadline day, it made it seem like there was a whole lot more to be had, and that they kind of just didn't go for it, and that's why I'm kind of disappointed. There were players' names being thrown around.
Some really good names.
Mfiondu Kabengele, Terrence Mann, Landry Shamet. Those guys' names were getting thrown around a lot. Especially like Shamet was more so like never really on the table, but Kabengele and Mann were like Sham said like that was kind of like
that was
the
official
talks were
reported. That wasn't
around.
just rumors. I mean, those were officially kind of talked about names.
So to only come away with Mo Harkless, it's kind of disappointing for me. Mo Harkless is a very good defender, and I'm happy to have him on the team. But like, I would have rather had like Kabengele, like
of course,
straight up.
This is how I look at the trade. You just fire your GM, and you don't want to make anything rash. You don't want to make any crazy moves because you're not a GM. I mean, that's what it comes down to.
See, but at the same time, you still hear the Knicks names around the D'Angelo Russell confusing.
You wish you had a good GM
it's
to kind of orchestrate the thing. And I'll say this: the most disappointing part about the Knicks in general this trade season is that they only got one deal done, and it was a pretty bare bones deal. And they didn't even get the most out of the one trade they made. You got a lot of names floating around that people are like, let's trade him. You got some pretty valuable assets, let's be honest. I mean, deals that I think you can get done. I believe that you could have gotten done. If you have a more respected name, people come approach you more. You still have Alonzo Trier. You still have Taj Gibson.
Bobby Portis.
I mean, these are guys who, they weren't great on the Knicks. Their trade value didn't go up, but I wouldn't necessarily say they went down because they didn't play enough to do so.
I just don't like. There was stuff that like
Dennis
seemed
Smith Jr. is still there.
Exactly. There's stuff that seemed like it was kind of like it's not really like a high maintenance deal. It comes out now that they were talking about like a swap for Malik Monk and Dennis Smith Jr. I don't know why you don't do that automatically. Like that seems like a really easy trade to make.
Or try to package a couple picks maybe because anything for
it's like
DSJ is pretty good. And if you can get Malik Monk, that's
exactly.
big.
Dennis Smith has no future on this team. Like,
yeah,
and like I get like Bobby Portis and stuff like that. They haven't played very well to like, especially because they have like pretty bloated contracts for the rest of this season, and it's hard to make salaries match on those, especially if you don't want to give up a whole bunch of players. So I get that, but like, and then like, there's talks coming out afterwards that like those guys weren't garnering interest and stuff like that. But I'm just saying it's a little disappointing that that's the only deal that got done because especially like I feel like you could have moved Elfrid Payton, especially like he had a triple double like 2 days before the deadline. I feel like
his value goes down after he like pushes Jay Crowder though, like more than you might think.
I don't know.
I mean, that's a really bad display of character that you don't want on your team, to be honest with you.
I don't know. I don't know. There's a thing with Elfrid Payton where he's like, as soon as he knows he's safe, he's like, oh, okay, I'm just going to turn into like Magic Johnson.
Yeah, it is weird. He had games.
He had like 15, 4, 9, and like 8
I remember
steals
his like
last
rookie
night.
season when he had his weird hair. He went on he had like triple doubles and like
that was last
3 or
season.
4 games.
Last season he had 5 straight triple doubles.
Yeah.
So
I don't know.
For the Clippers, okay.
Yeah, now
for
we
the
can talk
Clippers,
about the title. This is the most important trade in terms of
it's huge
title
for the
contention.
Clippers.
It's huge.
That's the biggest. You get the biggest like trade deadline asset out there. A guy who's averaging 20. You have like 5 guys on your bench who average 20 points.
And you take it from the Lakers.
Exactly.
Both teams were pursuing them.
That's the biggest. Like I'm not even. The Lakers aren't even in this trade, but I'm grading them an F for this trade because the reason they don't have Marcus Morris, who they desperately need, they need a guy who can just shoot and score and autonomously, away from LeBron and Anthony Davis. He doesn't even need like volume really. He can score like 20 points on like 15, 16 shots.
Yeah.
It's like, again, he's pretty autonomous, so you don't really need him
shooting over 40% from 3-point range.
It's not really like, and you exit the talks because Kuzma's on the table.
Yeah.
I don't I don't get that, dude. I don't get it at all.
I don't
Kuzma
know what
has
they're going
not
to get back for
displayed-
Kuzma.
Kuzma, like, I don't understand what Kuzma has. Like, I think he's I think he's got something going on with Genie Bus, dude. Because like,
I don't know, man.
there's nothing to explain why they're so attached to him. They were so much more willing to give up on guys who seemed so much more talented than him, Lonzo, Brandon Ingram, more specifically. But like, what is he giving you? I don't know what Kyle Kuzma gives.
He's giving you a less
that
efficient
warrants-
Marcus Morris performance.
Exactly.
basically.
He's just a worse version of Marcus Morris.
Yeah. I don't know, man. And now the Clippers have another guy who can score 20 points per game outside of Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. This moves the needle for me, maybe in the Clippers' favor to make the finals.
I think so too.
It may not, but I'm saying I thought Lakers all the way before this trade, and now I'm certainly like not as confident as I am in the Lakers because this is a big trade.
I just don't know what about like how the Lakers have played against other top teams in the league makes you think that like, oh, maybe we could use one more guy, you know?
Yeah.
Because like, I don't know. They are the number. I think they're still the number one seed in the West.
They're still the number. They're the team to be beaten.
But like, again, I used to think like my whole thing was like they have a level of talent that seems like overpowering to a degree. But dude, the Clippers have someone who can score 20 at every single position.
I think the Lakers are kind of depending on the Clippers kind of falling apart because
they have like chemistry issues or
there
something.
is chemistry issues. Whether Pat Beverly comes out and says it or not and says it's not true. Let's be
people
honest.
are pissed off in that locker room. I'm almost certain.
Montrezl Harrell,
he's not happy.
Went into a depression after they lost to the Grizzlies that game. I mean, he was really bummed out. You can tell that leaks. That's not. That's going to make it to the locker room.
I do think that like the Paul George and Kawhi stuff and how they're how their loads
mentality
are
of like we've already done it.
How their loads are managed, I think it might be rubbing some of the Clippers the wrong way, especially a guy like Montrezl Harrell who had to like scrap and claw to get to that position.
Exactly.
But all right, let's break it down. Clippers, I'm giving them an A.
That's an A.
That's you got the guy, and apparently you gave up less than what people expected you to give. For the Knicks, I'll give them an A minus.
It's a B plus.
I give them an A minus. You get a first round. Getting a first round pick.
You didn't boof the trade.
Getting a first round pick for Marcus Morris, I feel like it's a net good regardless of what could have been. You know, and Mo Harkless, I do like Mo Harkless. He's I think he's from Queens, so he's a New York native and he's a good defender. He's a really good perimeter defender. Wizards get Jerome Robinson for Isaiah Thomas. That's fine. I'll give him a C plus. I don't really.
Sure,
that doesn't really move.
They wanted him. They got him.
Doesn't really move the needle for me.
Congratulations.
I don't really even want to talk about this.
Yeah,
next trade.
Let's quickly run through the next 4 trades, just so you guys are aware.
The Sixers traded 2 second-round picks for Alec Burks and Glenn Robinson III. I believe they waived Alec Burks.
I believe so too. And the whole idea, and it was reported by Woj, is that they got bench shooting, and then they waived him.
Yeah,
whatever. I get that Glenn Robinson's a shooter, so I guess they wanted him. But I'm honestly surprised that they waived Burks, who might be a valuable asset.
It doesn't move the needle for me much at all.
Not much.
I'm not even going to grade this.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, it's really hard to.
Poor Scal, man.
Scal Labissiere gets traded for cash.
I like Scal. I still think he's a talented player.
And the Hawks get another young player.
I don't know. Maybe I think his skills could be better utilized in Atlanta.
Sure.
Philly trades Orlando. Philly trades James Ennis to Orlando and get a second-round pick back. James Ennis stinks. I don't like James Ennis at all.
Former Grizzly.
He sucks. He's like I don't know, like some guys get the shooter like moniker, like they get like designated as a shooter and you never see them make an open three. I don't really get that. Apparently Shabazz Napier was on the move again. He goes to cool. He was been traded he traded as we were reading this webpage here. But yeah.
And the last trade is the worst trade I think I've seen in my life.
Oh, they don't even have the Drummond trade on here. They don't. Oh, wait, yeah, they do. Yeah, we didn't even talk about that. I don't know why we didn't talk about that. We started with the D'Lo trade. Yeah, let's talk about the Andre Drummond trade.
This is the worst trade I've ever seen in my life.
Ever?
Barring the Brooklyn trade.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, let's not get crazy, but, I mean, okay, so the Cavaliers get Andre Drummond, which, okay, why did they trade for Andre Drummond? But let's talk about what the Pistons got first. You get Brandon Knight, John Henson, and a second-round pick, which is a swap worst.
Oh, so the Pistons can swap.
The Pistons, no, the Cavaliers
Oh,
can swap. They get the worst second round pick.
That's fucking terrible.
I mean, let's think about it. You get a 2-time All-Star, a guy who can get you 20 rebounds realistically in any given game, and you get literally nothing. There is no value in this pick. It's a late second round pick. You're not going to play Brandon Knight. You're not going to play John Henson. They're not going to be on your team next year.
Dude.
You have to be fired for this. This is a fireable offense on the spot.
Yeah, man. This is
You
bad.
can't get a singular asset for Andre Drummond.
That's bad. There's not a single like long-term asset that I think is like worthwhile on this, in this return.
Of course not.
Brandon Knight like is a journeyman. It's a one like
John Henson has been playing basketball since I was born.
He could drop. Brandon Knight could just drop out and never be in the never play another game in the league again in any minute now. And John Henson is so bad that like once the Knicks once Woj published that the Knicks were like rumored to like be in talks with him, that's when Steve Mills got fired. Like that's how bad John Henson is.
It was a fireable offense for just thinking about trading for John Henson.
And then you get a second round pick in which Cleveland can swap. That can't have been the best offer. That's not. There's no way. If that's the best offer,
you don't trade him at that point.
Then yeah, if that's the best offer,
trade him.
If that's the best offer, it's not worth trading.
No.
So
you try to re-sign him at that point and then trade him later.
And for the Cavs, like Andre Drummond doesn't really move the needle.
Tristan Thompson was having a career year.
Yeah, Tristan Thompson's having a really good year. It doesn't really make sense for you, like for the Cavs. But if you're gonna get him for that little, why not?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you on that front.
So I don't get Atlanta's handing out first round picks for Clint Capella, and you're not going to talk to them.
You're not even interested.
You're not going to talk to them about a guy who's infinitely better than Clint Capella. I would not like. I like Clint Capella. I think he's like a decent he's a good rim protector,
energy guy,
and a rim runner. Like he can get you some decent offense, and he's a good like defensive presence. I think Andre Drummond is like a better value overall.
Way better.
This is just the best. He's been like the best rebounder in the league for.
And Andre Drummond
ever.
Sounds surprised. So you know what that tells me? That means that he kept them from talking to Atlanta about extension talks.
What do you even do if you're the Piston? Like, what's the plan? Like everyone else, everyone else, you can kind of see why.
You're like, okay, I get it.
Every other trade here, you can kind of see like, oh, I get it. I get why they did that. Like even the Knicks, dude. The Knicks who are like the dumbest team in the NBA, like just who make the most head scratching decisions ever. You're like they trade Marcus Morris, and you're like, oh, that makes sense. They get a first round pick back. Like, what do you like? Andre Drummond's an all-star.
He's an all-star,
and you got you got the best asset you got was a second round pick,
a late second round pick.
That's ridiculous.
It's not okay.
I don't.
Detroit, before we were born, Detroit was like. They were
the bad boy Pistons.
They were like the best team in the league. How have they really come to this point?
Well, like they were able to make a lot out of players who were like not like
who were journeymen.
They were greater than they were able to put together a team that was greater than some of its parts.
Right.
And now it's
win
just
championships.
And now you're selling Andre Drummond.
They went from
parts.
almost getting Carmelo Anthony to this.
I don't like. There's so many other places he could have gone. There's so many other teams who need dude.
Let's look at the teams who didn't trade as well.
Okay, so the Celtics, big L on their part not making a trade. They
couldn't have gotten Andre Drummond for.
They could have gotten Andre Drummond for dirt cheap, and they desperately need a really good presence in the front.
Celtics
court.
make the finals with Andre Drummond. I'm going to tell you that right now.
Pretty sure they do, and they could do it for relatively. I think they have.
Give up one of your 17,000 first round picks.
Give up Gordon Hayward for Andre Drummond. I think you have a solid contender in the East.
That's crazy.
I don't like the
Mavericks.
I don't like.
I mean, I guess I don't have too much to trade.
So one last thing, I just think that's the Celtics sitting on their hands is one of the dumbest.
Especially when you see it,
especially
see that
because
trade done,
they could have made a deal very easily too.
They could have given up.
You could have even if you didn't want to give
up
Gordon Hayward, you could have you have enough contracts that are
you have Enes Kanter. They're paying him quite a bit of money.
Exactly. And so, the Mavericks.
And you could have given up the kid that they drafted in the first round too, the Celtics.
They drafted 3 guys in the first round.
Shoot, I can't.
Carson Edwards?
No, keep going.
Romeo Langford?
Romeo Langford.
Yeah.
The Pistons could have really used Romeo Langford. And even through all of this, I hate the Pistons. I think I hate them now just for this one.
This is so dumb. It's just incomprehensibly dumb.
You keep Derrick Rose and Reggie Jackson in this.
Derrick Rose is like it was like an incredibly
valuable asset.
Dude, he's playing his ass off.
He
and
is.
He's just.
I'm telling you, man. I cannot believe it. The more you think about it, the worse it gets.
Dude, yeah, it's like okay, that's pretty dumb, but then it's just like, dude, there's so many other places you could have traded him and gotten a better
the Spurs.
There's so much they could have done, and they sat on their hands. Of all the bad trades for them to make, this is they make the worst possible. Because so you can make a bad trade for Derrick Rose. You can make a bad.
Yeah,
you can
sure.
You can trade Derrick Rose in a bad trade. You can trade Blake Griffin in a bad trade. But you trade Andre Drummond. That's your most valuable asset.
That's it.
That's the guy you can get the most for. And you just got the worst.
Now you become the garbage can in the league. Next trade deadline is going to be a nightmare for them because every team's going to offer them literally nothing for Blake
Luke
Griffin.
Kennard is going to be in Phoenix.
Yeah,
for
and they
second round.
We didn't even mention that they talked about trading Luke Kennard. Their only real asset going forward in the next.
That's
5
the
years.
only player they've drafted, and it's like, this guy's pretty good. It doesn't make sense.
It's so crazy.
Okay, back to the teams who sat on their hands this deadline. The Mavericks. Did you really think the Mavericks missed out on something they could have
Drummond?
Really, do you think they need Drummond if they have Porzingis?
If they have Drummond, well, Porzingis can't play the 5. We already know that.
Not long term.
So if you can play him at the 5, it puts a lot of pressure off of Porzingis to be in the paint.
Sure, but you got to think about cap and stuff like that. I'm not sure. I'm not sure a trade for
Tim
Drummond
Hardaway
is in the best
could have
interest.
easily been in
Maybe.
that trade, in that deal.
Maybe, but I don't think they're suffering now for having sat on their
They're
hands.
not
I think the
suffering,
Celtics. I think the Celtics did miss out for sure. The Raptors. I'm not really sure they needed to make a trade.
They look great this season. I
I'm not sure
don't
they
think they
needed
need to
to.
make any trades.
The Pacers. They were talking about.
They made their moves in the offseason. They made their trades and they got their free agents how they wanted them. They got Bogdanovich.
I think it'd be better to kind of discuss the notable players who weren't traded.
Okay.
DeRozan was kind of it's very clearly not working out in San Antonio.
Yeah, I mean there looks
this is the worst this is the worst the Spurs have looked since I've been alive, and so I feel like I don't know if this is because they have faith in DeMar DeRozan. I doubt it.
Or they didn't get what maybe they just
I think the
didn't
trade
hear what
market
they
for
got.
DeMar DeRozan is not as lucrative as
maybe they
as
thought.
they'd want it to be.
Yeah. LaMarcus, I feel like they got a pretty hefty return back on. He's shooting threes this season, but I guess
LaMarcus is on a decent contract too. He's
it's nothing crazy.
The economics of the NBA have kind of passed his contract by.
Yeah.
So I think you could have gone, gotten a decent asset.
Maybe they asked Popovich and he said he liked the guys who they had, and who are they to deny a guy who's brought them that much success?
If that's really what it is,
Yeah.
then I trust Greg Popovich, but
Yeah.
I think it may have just been a matter of the trade market for these guys not being really, enthusiastic. Derrick Rose, again, we talked about it.
We talked about the Pistons.
What's the point of not trading him? He's on a 1-year deal. He's not going to be on this team next year.
No.
If he is, you're dumb. That's dumb.
It's insane that you just lose them for nothing.
Davis Bertans popped up at the
Yeah.
goal line. They wanted I heard there's something.
Dude, they wanted
the Wizards wanted 2 first rounders.
They wanted
for
a
him.
hefty return.
What?
I
like
mean,
Davis
I get it.
Bertans, but
I get it. Davis Bertans is a great shooter who plays the forward position, but come on, what are you realistically going to get for him past a late lottery pick, maybe 15 to 20? They wanted more than that.
I know. I don't hate the idea of getting a first for Davis Bertans.
Yeah.
2 is kind of that's ambitious.
Yeah, you're not going to. Obviously, they didn't, and that's what's never going to happen.
The Cavs are apparently doubling down on being okay.
We messed up on not trading Kevin
maybe
Love.
we'll make the playoffs, I guess, because we're trading for all-star players.
Even though they
now.
have 2 of the worst defensive guards in
They got to be
NBA
the worst.
history.
They got to be the worst team in the league that has multiple all-stars on it. Easily, right?
They draft guys who can't play defense. I mean, I don't know what they're expecting. Kevin Love isn't a defensive stopper either.
The funniest thing was just Kevin Love is so adamant about being traded. He's like, "Please get me out of here. I don't want to be."
He could be such a valuable asset on a championship
and the
team.
Cavs were just "Lol, dude. We'll see you at practice." Tristan Thompson too. Tristan Thompson's he's in a similar a Marcus Morris type position. He's playing really well, but what are you really gonna do with him? This is the peak of Tristan Thompson was him being on the team when you won the finals, and that's it. So I don't know
And
how he survived this long afterwards is crazy to me.
Yeah.
The Kings did not trade Bogdan Bogdanovic, which
The Kings are a poverty franchise again.
I don't know,
The
dude.
Kings are a poverty franchise.
I don't
again.
know if their whole thing was to like sell off. Like apparently their plan was to do nothing. But like, what are you doing here?
What's the dynamic?
Luke Walton is like, he's famously like flopping. It's a pretty bad like, it's a pretty poor showing for him. So, you're not trading off. I feel like soon we're gonna start getting some trade requests out of Sacramento. I think Fox is growing. I think Fox has to be getting impatient.
He's got to.
He's got to be getting impatient.
He did so much for them in his rookie season.
Buddy Hield already hates everyone in Sacramento.
And he just resigned.
He just resigned, but he still hates. Like nothing's changed. He's still very upset.
They should have been in the playoffs this year.
Bogdan again. Yeah, they were.
They got rid of a coach who was their best coach in the past like 20 years.
They were a huge threat to make the playoffs last year in the 8th seed, and now they're like nowhere. They've regressed so much, and it's simply like it. The only thing you can really point to is Luke Walton. So I'm not really sure. Like I think they will be sellers soon. I think they're going to start to reevaluate.
It all started,
and it's crazy because they're a pretty young team still.
It all started when they 2 years ago they drafted maybe the worst player in the top 10.
Marvin Bagley.
How?
You don't like Marvin Bagley?
How?
I don't know. Like, yeah, it's just again.
You miss out on.
There were 3 players taking over Doncic, and you can't like those guys.
You miss out on Trae Young, on Jaren Jackson, Luka Doncic. You have
that's the thing. You're gonna take a forward.
You have an 80% chance of getting that pick right, and they got it wrong.
If the Kings are gonna take a forward, you need to take the best like power forward available. You took like the second or third best power forward available.
You take a guy who has no perimeter presence.
He's got T-Rex arms. He can't defend.
I mean, it's. I don't know, man. I just.
So yeah,
bad.
I think if the Kings aren't moving people now, it's gonna start too soon because guys are gonna want out of there because it's ridiculous. It's bad. The Pelicans didn't trade Drew Holiday or JJ Redick. I don't really hate that. I think they have a decent thing going right now. It was hard to get continuity when you knew like Zion wasn't there.
It's tough. I mean, they still have a losing record with Zion back.
It might be. At what point does it become an Alvin Gentry thing?
I mean, he's brought them to the playoffs before.
I mean, yeah, but now like, I feel like as far as an all-around team, this is the best team he's ever had.
If you want to keep veteran presence around your young guys for development purposes, I can live with that. But I have to imagine you could get some pretty good value back for both of those guys. I would just be curious. We didn't hear any rumors, so we don't know what they could have gotten.
I feel like teams are not going to make serious offers on Drew Holiday unless they know he's for sure on the market. And I don't think Drew Holiday was ever for sure on the market. I think they were always listening, but I don't think like. And then JJ Redick, it's like obviously he's always a guy you can trade.
Anybody who shoots threes is valuable in the league.
Yeah. So the Thunder didn't trade Steven Adams or Danilo
Gallinari.
That one's surprising. Danilo Gallinari.
They messed it up. They could have been a 3-team trade. They could have gotten in on the Heat deal. But for some reason, they went to go talk to him the night before about a contract extension, and the Heat were like, no, like, that's our guy. We'll do the contract extension talks with him. I mean, they completely boofed it. They don't need Gallinari, and they could have gotten a first-round pick for him. So, in that sense, they really messed up on that part.
I mean, at the same time, you're still a team that's looking to make the playoffs.
Sure.
And he's still averaging almost 20 points per game. So, it's not the worst thing in the world if you keep
If they lose him in free agency, they are screwed.
Maybe, yeah. The Bulls didn't trade Denzel Valentine or Chris Dunn. That's weird.
What are you going to get for them?
Funny, I don't remember asking who the Bulls wanted
Denzel Valentine,
to trade.
you probably could have gotten something for, but at this point, Chris Dunn he's their problem.
Who's even on the Bulls, man?
Before we end the podcast, I think it's worth noting that Lauri Markkanen requested a trade after the trade deadline.
Yeah, dude.
Wrong timing, bud.
I was like, we were like, kind of like, sorting the pieces, the aftermath of the deadline. And like Barstool posts an article, and it's like, "Oh, Lauri Markkanen wants out, and it's time to fire." I'm like, "That's good to know, man." 2 hours after the deadline.
That's a little. Maybe you want to do that a little before.
I would have traded for Lauri. I would have traded multiple firsts for Lauri Markkanen.
Yeah, me too.
In a heartbeat. He would have been.
He'll be traded in the.
He would have skyrocketed. Yeah, he's gonna be gone during the draft.
Yeah,
he would have skyrocketed to the top.
He could be in a deal in the draft to trade up.
Yeah, I think so.
Which is ironic because they traded up to get him. Or no, they traded up to get Chris Dunn, excuse me. But I think he could be part of a package that a young team is willing to trade back for. I could see that happening.
If there's someone that the Bulls have their eye on that's just out of their reach, I see them trading.
And Lauri Markkanen is a valuable asset. I mean, a power forward who broke the 3-point shooting record in his rookie season. people that we're not that far removed from that happening.
All right.
Yeah, I think that's going to do it. Like we said, or like I said, you can follow Delivering Sports on all social media.
Before we get into the wrapping it up, let's get some final words on the deadline itself. I think, for me personally, it was a deadline that, a couple like big names get moved, but it's like, who's like, if anything, the biggest thing out of this is that the Clippers kind of swing their title chances a lot farther, in my opinion.
They're the biggest winners of the trade deadline.
Yeah. And who's the biggest loser, you think?
The Pistons.
Got to be Detroit, right?
It's the Pistons.
It was almost Atlanta for me, but the Pistons could not let that happen. They couldn't let someone else get poo-pooed on without being in the spotlight. But yeah, that's gonna do it for us.
That's gonna do it. Follow us on Twitter at Delivering Sports, Instagram at Delivering Sports. You can find us on YouTube, Delivering Sports. And that's all we got for now. We'll be recording every Sunday, so if you're gonna be a regular listener, look forward to our Sunday posts. Thank you for listening.
All right, we'll see you guys next time.